24. A few weeks later, Shoyo walked into the main house. Phone in hand. Kei? He didn't get a reply. So he ran upstairs into Kei's bedroom. Kei? He didn't find him in the office either. So he went to the garage to see if his car was there. He opened the door and found Kei wiping down his mountain bike. Good morning. A look of hurt washed over Shoyo's face. Kei's shoes were muddy and so was the bike. Why in the hell would Kei go riding after it had rained the day before? And why wouldn't he invite Shoyo along? That's what the extra bike was for. After all, what's wrong? You went without me. Yeah, I woke up needing to do something. I'm supposed to go with you, Kei. Kei tossed the rag aside. I know, and you will, but you can't go where I usually ride. You don't have the experience. Shoyo threw his hands in the air. How hard can it be? Kei chuckled. When was the last time you got on a bike of any kind? Shoyo pursed his lips together. It had been so long. He couldn't actually remember the last time. Riding on dirt trails is very different from renting a bike and riding through Central Park. I've been doing it for 10 years and I still managed to smash my arm. So, the extra bike was a pointless gift? How am I supposed to learn to ride if you leave me at home? Shoyo was finding it hard to be truly mad at Kei because he looked so damned adorable in his tight little biking shorts. Huh? He added for effect. I promise to take you next time. Okay, but you can't come in the house like that. You're filthy. Shoyo bit his lip, trying not to smile. Would Kei take the bait and undress right here? In front of him? I'll use the shower out back. Oh, and can you bring me a copy of your contract when you have a second? What? Shoyo was confused by the request. Why? I want to check on the part where apparently I'm paying you to nag. Ooh, bitchy. But don't complain to me when your arm is aching and you can't sleep. It didn't get past Shoyo that Kei winced when he tried to pull his shoe off with his right hand. Okay, Dr. Fake Covington. Kei got both of his shoes off and looked up to find Shoyo walking away. Hey, Shoyo? Yeah? I really do appreciate your concern. And if you're up for it, I'd love to take you out to dinner tonight. Maybe make up for leaving you in the dust this morning? There was only one reason Kei would want to go out to dinner. They'd hardly been out at all since the incident at the bar. Usually ordering takeout or Shoyo cooking at home. A paparazzi dinner? Paparazzi. And the best bottle of wine I can find. Shoyo bit his thumbnail while he considered it. I'll need something to wear. Of course. So will you. Kei smiled. Don't worry about me. I have a closet full of things. What's the goal? Now that the first Kiss episode has aired, Tadashi thinks it's time for a public display of affection. Shoyo leaned on the Maserati, looking worried. That should make things interesting with. He trailed off. Tobio? Kei helped him out. I've been putting him off. Making excuses. Meaning you haven't told him it's really over? Which means it must not be really over. It's not easy, okay? I feel like I've loved him forever. Shoyo couldn't bring himself to say the words "it's really over" to Tobio. They weren't communicating every day. Tobio was busy with school and Shoyo barely had time to think about anything but work. But they did still stay in touch via text. It was easy for Tobio. He dumped you, remember? Shoyo folded his arms, needing protection. Yeah, you like to remind me of that fact every chance you get. Just keeping it real, says the man with the fake boyfriend. Kei turned around and took off his muddy t-shirt. He was about to remove his shorts when he stopped and turned back around. You want some reality? Fine. I went on a ride this morning because I'm scared shitless right now. I'm scared to take this coming out thing all the way. And I thought a ride would calm my nerves. I took the hardest route. And now my arm is killing me. But I didn't want to tell you that because you'll rip me a new one for being so stupid and gutless. Surprised by the admission, Shoyo stared at Kei, standing there in just his shorts. Obviously feeling self-conscious. Just promise me you won't get on that bike without me. And I won't say a word about anyone being stupid. Kei acquiesced with a nod. Thank you. And as far as being gutless goes, I understand your fears about coming out. I had the same fears and some of mine came true. I lost my job. I lost my boyfriend. But no amount of money could put me back in the closet. It feels too good to be free of that burden. And I think once it's done, you'll feel the same way. Kay dropped his gaze and nodded again. I know. I keep telling myself everything will be fine. Kay, I'm here for you. You don't have to keep quiet. You don't have to be strong. Tell me what you're feeling so I can help. I don't want this sterile life I've created for myself anymore. It's safe, but it's lonely. And I don't want you to be used by that man again. You're too special. Shoyo pushed off the car and walked over to Kay, kicking the dirty shoes aside with his foot. We should hug this out. Kay tried to hold in his laughter, but it came bursting out in a stifled chuckle. He opened his arms and Shoyo fell into them. They stayed like that for several seconds, Kay resting his head on Shoyo's shoulder. You're the best and most frustrating friend I've ever had. You too, Shoyo whispered. He didn't want to let go. Having Kay's arms wrapped around his waist felt so good and so right. But Kay had been clear. They would never take this beyond friendship. And in those moments when he thought Kay was maybe softening his stance, he would put his walls back up and keep Shoyo at arm's length again. Shoyo sighed. Just so you know, you're driving tonight so I can get drunk. He pulled away and held up his phone. Oh, and your mother sent me a text. She loved the first kiss scene. Kay's eyes widened. She texted you? Yeah, she does it quite often. She gives me advice on how to handle you. Tell me embarrassing things about your childhood. Shoyo noticed Kay's chest filled with air, so he took a few steps back. Like when you, he screamed and bolted out of the garage with Kay right behind him. Grabbing for the phone, he made it to the side gate but couldn't punch in the code fast enough. Give me that phone. Kay pinned him against the gate, using his full body weight. Ooh, that's nice. Can feel your, Shoyo tried to slide the phone into his pocket, but he missed and it slid through his hands and hit the ground. Aha! Kay picked it up and ran back into the garage. He quickly hit the garage door button and shut the door before Shoyo could get in. He sat on a bench and found his mother's name in Shoyo's phone. He managed to scroll through most of the messages before Shoyo ran in through the inner door. There wasn't anything too embarrassing. Only the kindest words he'd ever seen from his mother. And extremely flattering comments back from Shoyo. Things like, "You're a beautiful couple on screen and off. Did you know Kay eloped when he married what's her name?" Kay snorted. His mother hated Grace. "No, I didn't know that," Shoyo had replied. "It was a terrible day for me. A mother needs a wedding. Shoyo, and a grandchild. Do you like children?" "I love children. And weddings. Hand it over." Kay looked up at Shoyo, standing there with his hand out. He gently set the phone in his hand. Shoyo looked at the screen and then put it in his pocket. Just telling her what she wants to hear. Of course. Kay quietly replied. He stood up as Shoyo walked away. You don't really strike me as the type. But thank you for perpetuating the myth. What type? Shoyo stood at the door. Waiting. Children. Shoyo had a number in mind. Since he was 7 years old, he'd talked about having 2 kids. A boy and a girl. He'd name the girl after his mother and the boy after his grandfather. When he realized he was gay, he'd let the dream go for a while and set his sights on other goals. Like his education and his acting career. But that little girl and boy still lived in his heart. No, you're right. I'm not the type. Shoyo opened the door and mumbled. And weddings are a big waste of money. Their outfits were laid out on the bed. After rifling through Kay's closet for half an hour, Shoyo had decided on neutral colors for both of them. Kay would wear low-waisted black trousers and a sleeveless black blouse with black-heeled boots. Shoyo would wear black plaid pants with a loose white blouse and black metallic boots that strapped at the ankle. Kay came out of the bathroom and raised an eyebrow as he looked at the choices. Are you sure? I thought maybe you'd want to wear that concoction you came up with when you visited me in the hospital that day. What was it again? Kay tapped his chin as he stared at the ceiling. Oh, yeah, dad shorts and a top you'd stolen from my closet. Shoyo put his hands on his hips. Are you done? Because I chose these without the help of your stylist. Kei grinned and put his hand on Shoyo's back, gently rubbing up and down. You've come so far, little grasshopper. I'm so proud. So, you like them? I love them. Okay, but you better be sure because the photo of the day Kei Tsukihina came out is about to be everywhere. That's a good point. Kei looked at the choices more carefully. I tried to go with something timeless. 20 years from now you don't want the Gay History Month lesson plan to have a photo of you with shoulder pads. Kei smirked. Gay History Month. Show? Yeah. It's where kids who never knew that gay people were hated learn about Stonewall and Harvey Milk and the inventor of flattering light. Shoyo grabbed his clothes and shoes but didn't walk away. He stood there, looking pensive. What's wrong? This is it. This is the finish line. Right? Goal achieved. Like when you read the last line of a book and you're so sad it's over. Except I'm not sad. Kei had thought about Shoyo's words while he showered. He was right. There would be no going back in the closet. No chickening out at the last minute. This was the first day of his newfound freedom. And he was ready to embrace it. I'm happy. And I'm gay. And pretty soon the whole world will know it. He took Shoyo's hand and gently squeezed it. I can't thank you enough for being willing to help me get to this point. Getting you to this point was my job. And now it's up to you to let me know when you're safe and sound. Because I'd like to get on with my life too. Kei slowly nodded his agreement. Hurt flashed across his eyes and then disappeared. I know. And I will. He wasn't sure what Shoyo was trying to say. Was he ready to move out as soon as possible? Kei forced a smile. Let's do this. Shoyo looked around as Kei pulled into a parking spot. This is it? Kei pointed across the street at the Starbucks where they'd first met. I thought we could get a coffee first. Ah, are you going to get all sappy on me tonight? Because it just might make me cry. It wasn't sarcasm. Shoyo had been feeling emotional all day. The conversation they'd had earlier about children hadn't helped. It got Shoyo thinking about his future. He'd put off some pretty important things. And that needed to change. Right now the last thing he needed was a walk down memory lane. Kei turned in his seat so he was facing Shoyo. I've never told you this. But I sat right here with Tadashi and watched you that day. Trying to decide if I should introduce myself. And two things were running through my head. First, that Tadashi is an idiot who talks me into the most ridiculous plans. That's true. Shoyo nodded his agreement. He turned and met Kei's gaze. What was the second thing? That you were so pretty. And the longer I looked at you, the smarter Tadashi's idea became. Shoyo's heart soared with happiness and then sank a little bit as the memories came flooding back. I'm so glad you could see past my horrible attitude. I was such an ass to you that day. A hot mess from day one. Kei's eyes fell to Shoyo's lips. He leaned in slightly and then pulled back. Let's go. Kei waited at the same patio table where they'd first met while Shoyo ordered coffee. He wanted tonight to be special. Their last night out in public before they'd be hounded relentlessly by the paparazzi. Like Shoyo had said, this was it. Tomorrow, everything would be different. Kei would in fact be officially out. And he didn't plan on confirming anything immediately. But the whole world would know he and Shoyo, his friend and co-star, were so much more than that now. As he kept his eyes on his phone, hoping no one would notice him sitting there all alone. His lips curled up at the thought of it. Lovers. The world will think we're lovers. Even with all of his fears about coming out. And all of his mixed up emotions when it came to Shoyo. Even with all of that. Having the whole world believe he was making love to that man on the regular. Well, that gave Kei a thrill that almost made up for all the other stuff. Kei Tsukihina, right? A guy who looked to be in his early 20s crouched down next to Kei's chair. Yes? Nikki Ballard. The guy offered his hand. I'm a huge fan. Ever since Colin came on the show. I've watched it religiously. Kei smiled. Ah, so, you watched Shoyo on Light of Day? No, just your show. I've always loved it. But now I'm just so grateful. You know? Kei gave him a nod. not really sure exactly what this stranger was saying. For what you're doing, Nikki added. People think having a few gay characters on cable is enough. But it's not. A lot of us have families who don't accept us. But they accept you. When you take a chance on creating a normal, successful gay character, you make my life easier. So, thank you. Shoyo walked up behind them, holding 2 cups. Kei's tummy did a somersault the second he saw him. Shoyo looked so beautiful, and at least for that night. He was Kei's date, only his, all his. He was speechless for a second as their eyes met. Nikki. This is Shoyo Hinata. Nikki stood up and whipped his head around. Oh my god, both of you are here? He said it loud enough that a few people turned to look. Nice to meet you, Nikki. Shoyo eyed the cameras that were coming out of purses and pockets. He gestured with his head. We should go. Kei also saw what was happening around them. Yeah. He stood up and took one of the cups from Shoyo's hand. Keep watching the show, Nikki. I think you'll like what happens. Oh, I will. As they walked away, Nikki shouted, You're both awesome. Shoyo looked back and smiled at Nikki as he followed Kei out. He's cute. He's too young for you. Kei whispered. No, he's not. He's probably Tobio's age. They got out onto the sidewalk and Kei stopped. Whoa, wait a minute. Just how old is Tony again? Tobio. Kei. And he's 25. You know that. Shoyo took him by the arm. You also know his name. But nice try. Now, keep walking. No, Shoyo, I did not know that. I knew he was in school. But I just assumed he was either getting a doctorate or, more likely, that he's kinda dumb and on a 20-year plan. Well, you're right about the first part. He just started working on his PhD. Oh good. Maybe we can take him to Chuck E. Cheese to celebrate. Kei honestly had no idea Shoyo had been in a relationship with someone so young. Well, he was only 5 years younger than Shoyo. You're an asshole. You know that? Shoyo mumbled under his breath. So are you. Now, let's go show the world what a delightful couple we make. Once they were back in the car, Kei turned to Shoyo. All kidding aside, have I told you how beautiful you look tonight? He caressed Shoyo's thigh with his finger. Shoyo's eyes tracked Kei's finger as it made a small circle on his leg, giving him shivers. He wanted to say something sarcastic but his mind was blank. I'm glad you like it, was all he could manage. He took a sip of his coffee and looked out the window, trying to ignore the goosebumps that were popping up all over his body. Big night, he said under his breath. What's that? Oh, I just said, it's a big night. Shoyo's legs started bouncing. Am I making you nervous? A little. He took another sip of his coffee. Look at me. Shoyo shook his head. No, I don't think I've ever once seen you nervous. You're always in control. Then you haven't been paying attention, Kei. Shoyo put his drink in the holder and got out of the car. Needing space, he folded his arms and paced behind the car. Kei also got out and stood there with his arm on the door. Is there something you want to tell me? Why are you doing this? Shoyo asked, pain evident in his expression. Why are you making it harder? Usually, you look at me like you want to devour me and then you get all pissed off about it and go pout in the corner. That I can handle. He'd seen the looks. Ever since they'd filmed the love scene, Kei would sometimes get a look in his eye. Shoyo recognized it for what it was. Straight up lust. He'd had the taste of a man and he wanted more. Only problem was, he'd get mad about it and start cleaning the house with a vengeance. The house didn't need cleaning. Vera took care of that now. Kei walked over to Shoyo and took his hand. He led him back to the car and opened his door, effectively trapping him as he put one arm on the roof and the other on the door. I want to tell you 1,000 times a day how beautiful you are. But I don't because we have to maintain a certain. And Tobio, you know, it's difficult. We're in a difficult place. Being on the show together. And, that's a long-winded way of saying we will never fuck. Oh, fuck. Shoyo's eyes scanned the small crowd that had gathered on the sidewalk, along with a telephoto lens sticking out of a car window in front of Starbucks. Pointed right at them. Don't turn around. There's a camera on us. Kei visibly stiffened. Don't move. Shoyo looked at Kei, then the camera, then back at Kei again. If he positioned the two of them just right, they could call it a day. That sounded pretty good right about now. Do you want to get this over with? What do you mean, right now? I could kiss you right now. We don't have to wait until tonight. Kei took a step closer, his demeanor softening. Do it. He took his bottom lip into his mouth to moisten it and slowly let it back out, keeping his eyes locked on Shoyo's. Good God, seriously, Kei? Shoyo thought as he slid his arm around Kei's waist, pulling him in a little more roughly than he'd intended. He slid his hand down a little bit so it rested just below the waistband of Kei's pants. He waited a few seconds so the camera could get a good shot of the pose. Then he turned them slightly, smiling at Kei the whole time, giving the cameras a better side view. Then he leaned in and let their noses touch first. You're good at this, Kei whispered. Shoyo turned slightly, so Kei's back was to the cameras again. He ran his hands down Kei's lower back, letting his fingers barely slide into the back pockets of his trousers and leaned in so their lips touched. But he didn't actually kiss Kei. He lingered for a few seconds and then kissed his cheek. That should do it, he said, letting go and getting back in the car. Kei stood there frozen for a second, staring straight ahead, probably stunned by what just didn't happen. He expected to be kissed. His confusion, if that's what it was understandable. He closed Shoyo's door, keeping his eyes down as he walked to his side of the car. Shoyo glanced back at the photographer as Kei drove away. I'm good with takeout if you just want to go home. But you look so cute. We can't let that go to waste. I wore it for you and you're welcome to take it off me tonight. Fuck me the way you never planned to, but desperately want to. If you're honest with yourself. It felt good to say it out loud. What he knew Kei had been thinking. After that lame-ass kiss back there? What the hell was that? Shoyo tried not to smile. You don't deserve my kisses. Kei gasped, his mouth hanging open. You just offered to let me fuck you. That's because I know you never will. But you don't get to kiss me and then leave me hanging. That's just bitchy. Kei stopped at the red light and stared at Shoyo. Hot mess. Shoyo shrugged. I changed my mind. I want dinner in a fancy restaurant tonight. Preferably one with oysters. If it isn't asking too fucking much. It's not, Kei said, looking contrite. And I'm sorry I haven't made that happen for you. I should have taken you out more. He reached over the center console as the light turned green. Hold my hand. Shoyo didn't move. Not for the cameras. Not for any other reason than I just want your hand. Shoyo stared at the hand. He wanted to take it. But his body was already so confused. He was turned on because Kei looked so amazing. His top was unbuttoned just enough to show off the cute little freckle on his chest that always made Shoyo smile when he had the pleasure of sneaking a peek at it. He was frustrated because he wanted to kiss Kei and never stop. And he was angry because none of this was real. Not 1 second of it. But the hand, those slender fingers, were waiting for him. Damn it. You idiot. Kei grabbed the steering wheel as he slammed on the brakes, trying to avoid hitting the driver that had just cut him off. And the moment was gone. Kei's hand was no longer waiting for him. Shoyo felt the loss.